What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like Nintendo is going to be making a bit of a surprising appearance at a certain convention coming up here soon, which, of course, has led everyone online to wonder what exactly they'll be showing up with, and we'll go over some of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony and a certain rumor that was going around with the strife between Sony and Bungie, and it seems to be a bit more validity now to it after a shakeup has hit Bungie when it comes to their marathon team. And then we're also going to be talking about Ubisoft, who's gotten quite a bit of pushback now when it comes to AI integration into some of their big-time titles going forward. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early and ad-free. If you want to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with an interesting hire, actually, by EA, and IGN had the exclusive on this one. We can see this posted up, saying Connie, one of the chief architects of PlayStation's first-party studio system, is joining EA. Now, remember, Connie, there was something that happened within Sony, but she ended up departing from PlayStation at the end of last year, and she was with Sony like forever, basically the whole time, right? With PlayStation, helped kind of cultivate that first-party lineup and the studios there. And now going to EA, the one that caught my eye for one of the studios she's going to be responsible for overseeing is BioWare, and BioWare really needs to turn things around. We know that Dragon Age is coming up. Some have said that we could even see it by the end of this year, but even beyond Dragon Age, the one that really needs to turn it around is Mass Effect. So while Mass Effect's still well off into the distance, because we need Dragon Age to get out first, this, I think, is something that Connie would have more of an impact on, as opposed to Dragon Age that seems to be creeping closer and closer to the finish line. But yeah, definitely a good pickup for EA. She did some incredible work there with Sony and PlayStation, so I feel like if really at this point, if anyone can help kind of lead BioWare back to its prominence, it'd probably be Connie, so we'll see what happens in the coming years there. Also, we do have a gameplay showcase coming up here in just a couple of hours for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. This is the page that's posted up currently over on the Bandai Namco page, and it looks like they're going to show roughly 13 minutes of this showcase that hopefully is mostly just all gameplay. Like, I guess we're going to be like in engine or actually just playing the game, but this is happening 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern time, and I am really excited to see what they have for us here, as we have seen glimpses of gameplay, I feel like anyway, with some of the most recent trailer, obviously, and even the first one we were pausing and zooming in to see really how it looks visually, but this should just be a straight up show of the game and how it's going to be playing. And of course, I'll be curious to see any new characters, as we are starting to see more and more magazine scans get out there online showcasing more characters. And yeah, it does seem like there's just going to be an overwhelming number of characters to pick from, as we were pretty much getting used to with the Tenkaichi series. Yes, I know it was mostly just forms of each character, and that's how they got so many of them, but still, it was really cool to have that massive character select screen in front of us. Just keep an eye out for this one, and of course, we'll be doing some more coverage for this showcase tomorrow morning Newswave. Oh, and speaking of showcases, we did have one for Metal Gear, well, specifically that Master Collection, but Konami then ended the show with like 30 seconds that gave us a look at the start screen for Metal Gear Solid Delta. Of course, the remake for Metal Gear Solid 3. You can see some of the start screen here. Yeah, it's mostly just the camera kind of panning around the jungle with press start at the bottom, which, sure, it plays into, obviously, the jungle setting, Metal Gear Solid 3, all that, but like if you look at the start screen for Metal Gear Solid 3, the original one, it was really the stylized background of different colors that you could even change on the PS2, and it was Snake taking down different enemy soldiers, CQC. It just looked really cool, whereas this kind of looks just basic, I guess, almost stock even, so again, we need to see the game itself. This is just the start screen, but I don't know. It doesn't, for me anyway, have that same kind of feel so far with, I know, just the start screen for Metal Gear Solid 3, but we'll see more hopefully in the next couple of months, as I would like to see this game maybe come out by the end of this year.
Today's video is sponsored by Color Light. Transform your gaming setup with the Color Light Mix and Mix Acid. Choose between 23 diverse built-in static and dynamic lighting effects, or transform your music into color. Create your own pre-programmed lighting effects to personalize your setup and change on the fly using just your voice, with support for Alexa and Google Assistant. With the Mix Acid, you are able to change lighting effects with intuitive hand gestures and connect using Bluetooth. Both can be powered from USB, DC, or battery. The Color Light gamepad stand pairs perfectly with your controllers. It can be placed with a width of 30 millimeters and is suitable for most controllers on the market, such as Xbox. Giving off a nice floating effect with a distinct glow shows off your favorite controller perfectly. Take your game to the next level with Color Play. Inspired by Cyberpunk, the Color Play is a desktop PC controller that is deeply customized for the gaming scene, providing assistance for users' work and gaming life. The screen is front and center, giving you a ton of information and control, including PC startup, CPU monitoring, follower count, programmable keyboard, and one-click control of Color Light. The Super Saiyan mode is a new feature that combines wallpaper, keypad, and PC switch into one unified mode. It works to reduce page switching, providing a more convenient experience. Customize it further by uploading your favorite wallpaper, making it unique to your own setup. Check out the link below in the description to learn more about the Color Light Mix, Mix Acid, and Color Play. Thanks to Color Light for sponsoring today's video.
And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with PAX East and Nintendo making a surprising appearance there. And I say surprising because they really haven't said anything about being there, and so most people just kind of wrote it off and said, well, they don't really have much to show, I figure, at that time, since they have Princess Peach Showtime, of course, releasing this week. And then they have Paper Mario Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Nothing massive in terms of a brand new title, like a Metroid Prime 4, a 3D Mario, a Mario Kart, a Zelda. Something they'd really want to rent out a big space to showcase the whole time that they're there in Boston. Well, it seems like, with the floor plan now released, that Nintendo will be there, and in fact, they will have one of the larger booths. Now, we can see the floor plan that was posted up on the PAX website. PAX East will be happening, of course, in Boston starting March 21st, so tomorrow, to run to the 24th. And with that, we can see Nintendo's booth at the top right here. It's actually pretty close to Final Fantasy XIV. There's a PAX Merch Expo. Also, Pokemon. So we'll have the Nintendo booth in one corner here in that top right quadrant, and then we'll have the Pokemon booth in the bottom left. Now, of course, people are looking at this wondering, okay, they have this big booth there. They're probably going to have something pretty serious. Will it be a brand new game we don't know about? A new system? These are all things, obviously, that are getting thrown around. I would like to point out that Mountain Dew also has a sizable booth alongside of Larian Studios. So I would look at this and say Nintendo is probably going to show up with Princess Peach Showtime, maybe a look at Paper Mario, and then a bunch of evergreen titles that they want to keep selling. This, to me, looks like Nintendo showcasing just their range of titles, merchandise, Switch systems. It's just them advertising in a booth at PAX East, which I will say, probably next year at PAX East would be a time where I think Nintendo could show up with some legitimately interesting stuff, because I would hope we know about Nintendo's next system by then, and it might even be out at that time. If it's not, they might use PAX East for 2025 as a venue to showcase it and allow people to have some hands-on time with it. PAX, we have had this happen before with the original Switch when it came out, where Nintendo was making the rounds, and different places like this had even like Skyrim for the first time playable on a handheld. So it's not uncommon for some of these conventions like a PAX or a Comic-Con to have Nintendo there with new games, but in this case, I think it's gonna be stuff that's already out, or stuff that would have just released with Princess Peach, and then maybe some demo reels of upcoming games like Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and then Paper Mario. But you never know, Nintendo could show up with some cool standee or a statue, like they made the rounds with that Link statue. It was really cool for photo ops. Maybe they have something for a Princess Peach setup as well. So hey, if you're going out to PAX East, this is a nice surprise, because going into it, I didn't even think Nintendo would show up, but here they are. So if you head out there, well, leave comments down below in the coming days for Newswave is exactly what they're doing there. Next up, let's talk about Ubisoft getting some pushback online, because What else is new with Ubisoft? This time, though, has to do with generative AI being used in some of their games. Specifically, though, they are showcasing a prototype that would bring in AI for more or less having conversations with you that are much more varied than what you're used to in open world games, where most NPCs have so many lines they can just kind of pull from, and you sort of hear the same thing over and over again if you play the game long enough. Well, we can see this was posted up over on X and received a ton of criticism. They say, ever dreamed of having a real conversation with an NPC? Presenting our research project, Neo NPCs, a new kind of NPC that uses generative AI to really talk to you. Discover how our team of writers and developers are coming together in this exciting experiment. I mean, the thing that's the most offensive here is the dialogue that they decided to pick for this, because it just does not sound natural. They say, hi, you must be Nelson. I can't believe you're finally here. I'm Bloom, your future teammate in the Resistance, by the way. I figured out we could spend some time together to check if we have a compatible vibe, to build our dynamic duo. How does that sound to you? Sounds like a machine wrote that. Anyway, it looks like you can hold left trigger, talk to them, and they'll talk back to you based on what you say. And with some of these different language models and machine learning, it would get better over time and more or less fit into your mannerisms or that sort of thing. But if we go over to the page that Ubisoft posted up, we have the narrative director, Virginie Moser, says, I'm used to building a character's backstory, their hopes and dreams, the experiences that shaped their personality, and used all that information to nurture myself into writing dialogue. Now she builds a character's backstory, their hopes and dreams, the experiences that shaped their personality, and uses all that information to nurture a model. And that's the biggest thing now is, instead of having writers or any of these people working at these studios just sit there and write out lines of dialogue over and over and try to vary it themselves, if they can essentially build a model that would then be deployed for these NPCs to come up with responses and string together sentences on their own, they would essentially, yes, save time, but I guess in their mind, create a more natural feeling environment with NPCs walking around that would, I guess, start to feel more and more alive. I know AI gets a lot of pushback right now, and it's still very unknown what kind of effect it will have in gaming. Would it go on to replace all developers and artists and everyone working on games outside of just the executives in the suits at the top? That is one extreme side of things. It's a major fear that's going around now. But on the other hand, could it just be a tool set that works to make jobs easier or more streamlined for people that are already there? That, I think, would be the healthy balance. But there's also a lot of trust with the executives to continue that balance and not just try to exploit AI like crazy and cut out as many jobs as possible to save money, because, hey, there's one thing that the CEOs at these big companies don't mind, it's cutting out jobs. But for now, this seems to be just kind of a prototype that's in development at Ubisoft. Who knows if it even pans out, but something we're going to be hearing a lot more of going forward, I'm telling you this now, is just AI in-game development. Microsoft's working on it, Sony's working on it, Ubisoft, EA, they all are. So it's one of those things where they're trying to figure out ways to manage budgets while still keeping expectations to a certain level, and I just don't really see a way that AI won't play into that in some way in the background. Next up, let's talk about a concerning email that a person on YouTube received. That's actually what it's called. You can see the video here, called I Got a Concerning Email. This is from Aztec Cross, and it made the rounds quickly because what it describes just more or less is just sort of the relationship between Sony and Bungie. I mean, just being fractured, and it seems like a ton of tension between them and them just kind of clashing. There was actually a summary that was even put over on Gaming Leaks and Rumors, and the big takeaway here is this quote: overall, Sony has been very upset at Bungie leadership. They have not been able to successfully advise Sony teams, and while Lightfall hit internal revenue targets, every target since has been missed at an escalating decline. Bungie leadership regularly reschedule meetings with Sony leadership, know that the next time slot can be months away, basically putting them off over and over and over again. And look, my thing with this, and it's been pointed out before, is when you see these anonymous emails go around, and it more or less sounds like a lot of the talking points that have already been mentioned in different reports or other rumors, it is harder to necessarily believe outright. Not that this couldn't be correct, because I mean, based on what we heard, it kind of does sound like, okay, that, yeah, I could see that going on. And sure, Sony could eventually come in and take over Bungie just to get things in order, as we've heard a lot of the issues going on in the background at Bungie now. But then I saw this pop up, and I'll admit, I looked at the email a bit more seriously, because we can see this is posted up over on IGN, where they say, according to multiple sources familiar with the matter, Bungie is in the midst of shifting around its creative leadership on Marathon, including removing long-time Bungie designer Christopher Barrett from the game director role. IGN learned he is being replaced by former Valorant game director Joe Ziegler, who left Riot Games for Bungie in 2022. IGN reached out to Bungie for comment on whether or not Barrett will remain with the company. So you don't shift around leadership like that if things are going well, and this is with Marathon. So we know right now with Destiny 2, things are on the decline, and there's even concerns around this expansion coming up, not necessarily meeting the expectations of the numbers that are set out currently, so that things continue to move along smoothly when it comes to the revenue versus the expenses. In this case, though, Marathon, I mean, that's a big deal for Bungie, and I can only imagine that if they're moving around with leadership like this, it's almost dire to a point to where they have to make a serious move or things could go completely off the rails. So IGN, it seems to still be following up on the story as it's continuing along, and I would assume that some other sources like Paul Tassi, maybe Jason Schreier, can follow up a bit more, because hearing news around this with Marathon, hearing news around Bungie and Sony seemingly being at odds with how they should be running, it's not exactly painting the best picture right now for what's going on with Bungie. So I guess we'll see if we get more information here in the coming week or so. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Game Pass games going into the service to close out March and kick off April. We can see this posted up over on Xbox Wire. Now, these games are available currently. That's Lightyear Frontier. It is game preview, cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. And MLB The Show 24. That's cloud and console. Of course, that going into Game Pass day one. And then starting today, we have The Quarry, cloud and console. Evil West, March 21st, cloud, console, and PC. Moving up to March 26th, we have Terra Invicta, that's game preview on PC. March 28th, Diablo 4, one of the big Activision Blizzard games finally going into the service, and sounds like more will be following in the coming months, according to Microsoft and Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond during that Xbox podcast. Of course, Diablo 4, console and PC. We also have Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged, cloud, console, and PC. Open Roads, cloud, console, and PC. Kicking off April, starting on the 1st, Ark Survival Ascended, cloud, PC, Xbox Series X and S. And then moving up to April 2nd, we have F1 23 in the cloud through EA Play. And Superhot Mind Control Delete, cloud, console, and PC. There are a few games that'll be leaving. Hot Wheels Unleashed, cloud, console, and PC. Of course, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 technically coming in to replace it. Infinite Guitars, cloud, console, and PC. And then MLB The Show 23, of course, with 24 coming in to replace that one. These 3 games, though, will be leaving March 31st. Not a bad way, though, to close out March and kick off April for Game Pass. Obviously, Diablo 4 being the big one here, and I'm hoping that really gets the ball rolling for more Activision Blizzard titles going into the service. Not even like the big new ones. Even if they went back and grabbed 4 or 5 titles from their back catalog and just kind of threw them in there one month alongside of some third-party titles, I think that'd be a lot of fun to have those kind of just get dropped in there. And then MLB The Show 24. I think this is a great service for any of these sports titles because we know just how fast they depreciate. This, though, I mean, just showing up day one. So yeah, that's an obvious pickup for baseball fans out there. But yeah, let me know which games you're looking forward to playing here to close out March in Game Pass. And before we go to the comments of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, what's the max resolution of your primary gaming TV/monitor? Some in the comments wanted me to kind of separate them, and maybe I will down the road. I'll run it for just monitor or TV. But at this time, 4K is in the lead, 49%, then 1080p for 29%, 1440p at 18%. Wow, 2% of you out there still on 720p. And I gotta ask the people who voted for 8K plus, does it just cap at 8K? Or is there a bigger setup than that I'm not even aware of? I just wanted to throw that down there to see how many people would vote for 8K plus. But yeah, 4K, as expected, leading the way there. And I mean, that's one of the reasons I think many of us would like to see these companies just focus in on 4K resolution specifically, conquer that 4K 60. I think the majority of us will just be good. And we'll finish up with the comments of the day. We'll start with this one here. This is posted up by John, who says PSVR 2 is far too expensive. It's a fine device, but VR is still very niche, and pricing a device so high will limit its sales. This was like the running thought I saw in the comments. It's $550. It's $600. There's not enough for me to buy it. Like that is a lot of money. It's more than the PlayStation 5 console. And then also it's limited to just being a gaming device. Whereas if you buy a Quest 3, there's a bunch of stuff you can do outside of just gaming. There's like a lot of productivity stuff you can do on there. You could technically just do all kinds of work on the Quest 3 or other experiences outside of just playing games. And you don't need to rely on a system like a PlayStation 5. It's just an all-in-one headset. So ease of use is also a very important part. A lot of convenience plays into it. So it makes sense to me why the Quest 3 is just handily outselling the PSVR 2 at this point. And then we'll go to a comment from the members video. We can see this post up by Loom Doom saying it makes sense for Microsoft to release their next-gen hardware earlier, so they are not in a head-to-head competition with Sony. But I think PS5 will last at least 7 years, possibly even more, so that next-gen Xbox will be reliant on first-party games to take full advantage of the hardware, because third parties will probably still be focusing on developing for the base PS5. Yes, and the big thing here, if Microsoft does make that jump to next gen, say in 2026, and they are looking to release a powerful system, not just one that's fully reliant on the cloud, like a streaming stick, something like that, remember the CPU will see a significant upgrade, whereas the PS5 Pro is still just going to use the same CPU that's in the PS5 now, plus or minus it's like a 10% boost really in terms of clock speed. Not enough to make a significant change. So yeah, if Microsoft can hold out for 2 years or so, they should have a pretty significant advantage. And even when the PS6 comes out, is it going to do 4K better? Is that like the leading line? Are we going for 8K? That is my biggest question now, is how much further do we push fidelity to where the average consumer really even notices or cares anymore? I feel like we need something else to really play into this to get people to go, okay, I get it, that's next gen. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's Nintendo heading out to PAX East? Let me know if you're heading out to the convention and what you're planning to do there. And then also, what about Ubisoft working in generative AI for some of their games? Then Sony and Bungie, it sounds like a lot of stuff is happening there in the background. How are you feeling about Destiny 2 heading into the newest expansion in a couple of months? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.